Hello, I'm Simon Hedley, and welcome to today's episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. I'm excited to introduce you to an amazing friend of mine, the one and only Jill Lublin. Firstly, Jill has been the recognised go-to expert for guerrilla publicity, helping countless of well-known names, but more than that, she's a multiple best-selling author, accomplished speaker, and that's just scratching the surface of the impact she's made. And personally, I've always been touched by how approachable Jill is, and that is really a big thing for me. And also her focus on real relationships and being kind in business. So without further ado, Jill, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here, Simon. Thank you.
Well, me too. I'm really glad to be talking today about this. And so to kick off, for people that may not know you yet or haven't come up with your recent resets, who are you and what are you focused on today?
So who am I? Always a good question, right? What I'm focused on is helping people with their message, with getting their name out there, and using publicity as a primary marketing strategy in order to do that. So that's what I've been doing for many years, loving it, teaching virtual publicity courses, speaking and training all over the world I've been blessed to do. And in addition to that, I run an intentional kindness community, and that's just been really super.
Wow. As I touched on, you have fingers in many pies, and I love you for that. But if you look back on your life till now, what's been the biggest shift and resets you've been through?
The big one, besides my book coming out, my first book in particular, Guerrilla Publicity, that coming out was like a birthing almost. I think besides, of course, the fact that it is something to really birth a book, there was really a process for me individually to come out, to come forth. And so that was exciting and really called me forth. And then the time I broke both ankles in multiple places. Yes. Ow is right. And on an international trip. So that was even tougher. So it wasn't like I was home and it was easier to get care. It was quite something. And then I ended up spending 6 months in a wheelchair after that accident. So you can imagine, it had me question, it had me relook, it had me rethink, just as these times have forced us all to do too. And it was good to do all that. And I think an important time for relooking.
I can really get that. I'm sure there's a whole other story about how that happened, but those two things of birthing the book and then separately the sort of the physical, I know exactly what you mean. Birthing anything is more than people realize and stepping into that new you. And we often talk about these sort of three different aspects, taking a pause, stopping and resetting. If you look back on your life, which has been the hardest for you and why do you think that was?
You mean in terms of either of these?
Yeah,
or just generally?
So some people find it easy to take a pause but hard to stop. Some people find it easy to do pausing and stopping, but they keep doing the same thing again and again and again. And you've obviously been through changes and transitions with publicity changing as it has. I'm just curious whether you find it easy to pause, easy to stop, easy to reset, or do you find is sort of the easiest or the hardest thing for you to do out of those three?
Stopping's hard for me because I'm a very in-motion kind of woman. My mind thinks fast. I tend to operate quickly. I make fast decisions usually. So that was probably a big thing for me. What I've done, though, is created in my life forced stops. I actually went traveling all around the world for close to 2 years and actually stopped my publicity business and just went on the road. And that was awesome. So what I have done, kind of the way I help myself in a way stop, is I force it. So I either do that with time out, but the good time out, vacations where I'm disconnected. And I think it is important to stop. And then because of that, it also has increased my connection to what I want to reset into. And that's been helpful.
I really get that. I'm curious, what prompted the 2-year break, the 2-year holiday?
So that was because something was calling me. So this is for me listening to inspiration. And something was calling me, and it was to shift my life, actually. And so I went off to South America, and I actually had no real agenda. I thought I might write a book about it, about my experiences there. And I actually did interview amazing amounts of wonderful people. But I'll tell you, my big thing was just to go without agenda and without a plan. And I ended up with the most magnificent connections, people in my life, all of that good stuff. And it's just been miraculous. I was excited by that. And I will tell you, I think everybody should just sometimes give in to inspiration. And one thing as much as I'm a motivated, goal-driven person, and I am, I also have learned, and this has been a learning for me, I've also learned that at times you just got to watch where the river's flowing. For me, that looks like what calls me, what inspires me, what says yes when somebody asks me to do something. So that is much more how I'm living my life now. And I'm grateful.
I really love that. And I know I've been on that journey myself, not the 2-year one, but very much listening to that flow of the river. I love that metaphor, love that experience. And is that something you knew growing up? Is that one of the big lessons you wish you could have given your younger self, or was something else you wish you could have passed on?
I think that's definitely one. And then how about just loving oneself? For me, it was self-approval. I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional family. So, really just learning to love myself was an important piece, and being okay with myself and just letting things be. I think those of us who come maybe from families that are a little more difficult, I have seen that my behavior, and I'll just speak for me, has been do more, accomplish more, and that I am something, right? It's served me well in my life. I mean, I've created 4 books. I have been able to be blessed to bless others. And all of that is true. And if I think I had one thing to teach my younger self, it's that I'm okay just the way I am.
I really hear that. I get that. And it's a common message. It's hard, though, to be with that if you haven't come from the abundant headspace growing up or in that experience. And as you say, sometimes that drives you on, right? So if you hadn't had that, you wouldn't have done what you did. So it's a balance, I think, sometimes. Is that true for you?
Yeah, I think it's really true. And my friends who come from other kinds of environments, they have other issues. So I think in life, we have our individual life learnings, and we hopefully learn them and create better behaviors. I mean, a lot of my life has also been filled with transformational life experiences so that I could grow and learn. And I have, consistently been an ongoing learner and invest in myself consistently to grow. So all of that, I think, is at least has been key in my life.
I can really get that. And what I know about you personally, that's definitely true. I've watched you growing and changing and doing the work. And partly the goal for the podcast is I find listening to audios, watching movies, reading books impacts me and helps me do those pause, stop, resets. Is that true for you? And are there any books or movies sort of stand out?
Oh, wow. There's so many books. I am a reader, and I'm trying to think, what other ones? I mean, there's definite people I've worked with and groups I've been part of that have made a huge difference. And one of my commitments is that I always keep myself in, I'll call it a spiritual learning. And so every month, really, I am either doing something deeply, whether it's meditative or growth-oriented, personal transformation. I am absolutely committed to that. I'm working with someone, or I'm watching certain things on video. So yeah, Michael Beckwith has been somebody that's been really excellent for me, of Agape, and that's been fantastic. As far as inspiration, I would tell you, like, some of Deepak Chopra's work has been wonderful. And who else? Oh my gosh, all of a sudden I have forgot his name.
The blank comes. No, it happens,
yes, the
right?
blank comes.
And especially with you, you've known these people personally, you work with them. I think back to Michael and Ricky and the impact they made. And I'm just curious, if when you mentioned Michael, what of what he was sharing resonated most with you or comes to mind at the moment?
I continue to watch him every week. In fact, through COVID, which has been wonderful, is I get to tune in every Sunday, which before I wasn't able to do that. I have a little Post-it on my mirror that says, wherever I am, God is, right? And everything is working together for my good. So when I reflect on that and I just let myself be in the energy of that, like, that's uplifting. And I think the biggest thing through not only these wild times we've been in, but life in general is, and before this too, and the question is, what can I do? This is my question for me. What can I do to increase my frequency, to be happy and joyful, to live life in light and love? And that's my question and query for me every single day. And so when I wake up, and if I'm on that wrong side of the bed, as they call it, not feeling as well, I will immediately start doing some things that I know will change my energy. During the day, something happens, I'll get up, I'll go for a walk. So I do understand about what typically is called changing state. And by the way, sometimes I just lay in bed and I curl up, and you know what? I give myself space to feel what I feel. And I think that it's all important, right? There's a balance in life of what's working, what do you have to be when you're showing up your best? How can you show up your best? I mean, that's a question I ask myself. And yeah, I'm responsible for my happiness. I'm responsible to keep my energy high and help others. For me, I feel like that's part of who I am in life, is a guide and support for others. And that means I take a lot of responsibility for myself. And I'm not saying it's always easy, but that's the practice. And one of the things Michael says that I love, Michael Beckwith, he says they call it spiritual practice for a reason. It's a spiritual practice because you do have to stay in the practice of it. It isn't just do it and done. Every morning I focus on reading something that's uplifting. Right now I'm reading through a book called God Calling with A.J. Russell. And it's just every day there's something. I love Joel Osteen. He, for a while, was really inspiring me. And I'm not like a big Christian or anything. It's just that I think his words are beautiful and inspiring. So I think it's just finding those that you connect to and do it, and then do it till it doesn't inspire you anymore. And I do think that we have different teachers at different times. And for me, that's really been true in my life. I have different teachers at different times, different modalities. If you need to learn meditation, that might be one teacher. Or if there's a deepening in a different way, great. My big thing is whatever works, just do whatever it is to help you be better, live higher, live more, live joyfully more. These are all important tactics in life. And I also think there are times where you just got to ride the grind, if it feels like a grind, and that's okay too.
I love that. And there's a lot of little nuggets in there, gems of genius, as we say. I really get that. And I'm looking back and going, yep, I can hear that so clearly. When people are going through these resets and they've had to pause, stop, reset, very differently choosing it, and you're touching on that inspiration, books and people and finding those teachers, is that what's helped you through yours, whether it was the ankles breaking, launching your book, other things you've been through? What was the thing that most helped you through those?
I think it's honestly my strong spiritual foundation. And again, that doesn't come easy. That comes with a lot of focus. But here's what I've learned. No matter what's going on in life, I don't need to react to it. And that means that waves I ride, some up, some down. It's not all been perfect. It's not all been easy or fun or simple by any means. But I do think that my strength of particularly the personal transformation work I've done, the spiritual work I've done, that is what gets me through every single day. Is
that something you started really young, or is that something you got into in your 20s and beyond?
It was 20s and beyond, funny enough he said that, because I think it was about 24. I started, I think it was LifeSpring at the time, and then I did a forum of what they now call the forum, right? And that's been wonderful. So I think what happened for me is that all of a sudden I went, whoa, this isn't who I want to be anymore. And I started looking and searching. And so in all of that searching, I found some things that worked for me. And then I found the next thing that worked for me. And I think that's like life, right? One thing and then the next, and see what works and then keep going.
I love that. And keep going, don't stop.
And keep going.
And we're allowed to have that lazy day when you want it. And it's not even a lazy day, it's that self-nurturing day. I can really get that. I don't think I needed the ontology work. And we have that in common there. And it's definitely been a big learning about that beingness state as opposed to doing. And they do relate to each other. It's a really fascinating time.
Yes.
And I'm curious, based on that depth, both the practical work you've done with business stuff and also the sort of inner work, for people that are listening and they're looking to make a shift, maybe things are going well, they want it to improve, or like unfortunately many people are struggling right now with health and work and finances, what would something you'd suggest them to try out or try on if they are going through a shift and looking at how to do that with more ease and grace?
That's an interesting point. Here's what I just tell you to start. Find a book that just speaks to you and go into a bookstore and maybe look in the personal development section and see what speaks to you. See what, falls off the shelf. Start with one thing. And for me, a continuous is Agape and Michael Beckwith. I love that because it's very much about keeping joyful and staying high, so to speak, in a good
without
way.
The knockoff six. It's the music,
drugs.
The sound, the coming together, the collaboration. I can hear that.
Exactly. So I think, we all have to find what's right for us. And for some people, it may be religion, a deep connection with a certain religion. I think all of us are really different. For me, it's like whatever you can find that will help you improve, then you go for it. And then I tend to see that one thing leads to another, and that there's openings and new things, because you'll meet somebody somewhere and all of a sudden, and I think that's a piece of it, is stay open, get open, become more open, and start asking people, what do you do that makes a difference for you in your life? Who are you working with? Or what kinds of books are making a difference for you? Just like we're talking about now. Wayne Dyer, by the way, Wayne Dyer was the one I was trying to think of. Great books. He's since passed, but his books live on. And I think that's a great place for a lot of people to start.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I think the interesting thing is people that knew them are still around. But the thing I really love and just draw out was this thing about just go with it, read the thing that calls to you. I've done that myself on Amazon before. There are other booksellers going on and just randomly finding something and getting drawn into it and then taking that step and then something else opens up. Can I ask it's a harder question or a deeper question? Because I really get that. And there are times when life is in flow. But also, I've been finding with friends, clients in the last 6-12 months, there are some people who have not given up the ghost, but like nothing's working for them. Does that make sense? Like the things they're starting, they're not right. So they're knowing, probably before your traveling period, sort of there's something there's coming, but they haven't found it yet. And any way to be patient on that? It's easy when things are good to surf and life's great. But when it's not so much, there's Dark Night of the Soul Mill client used to say. Is there any tips on that? Because I can really hear you're in a great place today. I can really hear that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I do feel in a good place. And listen, for a while, I remember feeling fallow is what I learned the term for it is. Fallow. Like the truth is, in our worlds, there are times where the ground is being prepared to plant new seeds, to grow new things. It is actually fallow in the farming terminology. I learned this from, funny enough, a spiritual teacher, because there was like 2 years where I said to him, I just don't feel like anything's really happening. It doesn't even look like that on the outside, but internally, inside, I felt like nothing was happening, like nothing was sparking. I didn't feel any kind of enthusiasm for any particular thing. You know, I went around and did my life and it was okay, but I didn't feel turned on, tuned in inside. And I remember really talking to him about that. And he said, Jill, in our Western cultures particularly, we don't have a lot of space, what they call being fallow. And I think it is a farm term, originally agricultural term, and forgive me, I don't know the whole origins of it. But the truth is you have to prepare the land. That's really what it comes down to. And I think there are times where we are fallow and it's okay, but we need to give ourselves permission that it's okay, that maybe nothing's working. Maybe we've fallen on our face. Maybe nothing seems to be sparking, because in a way, I believe that we're being led to something even greater, or something that serves our soul even better. And that's what I found in my fallowness. The reason is because I wasn't quite moving in all the direction that maybe God intended for me, and even a bigger way. And I think that as we rely on spiritual practice and not getting our goods from the outside, that enables us to, funny enough, create better goods on the outside, because I just believe, and I've seen in my own life, new things will emerge as possibilities. That being said, this has been the most trying times in most of our lives. None of us are used to this. I mean, listen, I was on the road half the month training and speaking and doing wonderful things. Now I took it all virtual. I'm having a blast, actually. And it's even better because it's more relaxed for me and actually easier for all my attendees. So that's been interesting. I do think that there are moments, I know for myself, that I have felt there is an actual psychological condition called languishing. And I felt this year like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. I'm feeling a little slightly anxious and depressed at times. I haven't moved from my house too much, and that causes different things. And because we've all been in new states that we've never been in before, yes, it will cause all kinds of conditions for all kinds of people. And I think if you're human, you can admit that this past 15 months has caused anxiety, depressions, sadness, fear, loss, whatever, grief, everything we've all been going through. And by the way, grieving for our lives. I haven't seen my brother in a year and a half. I haven't seen my sister, like that kind of stuff. And that's real. That's real. I haven't been able to get out of the country like I usually do, or, go on some of my fun trips and vacations that nurture me in different ways. So yes, and talk about a new and demanding time for, okay, what else can I do? So, I go for a drive to the beach, and I'm lucky to have that. I go into nature and take a beautiful hike. I found places around my own city that I never had time to explore before that are absolutely beautiful, where I can be in nature, which for me has been really regenerating. And frankly, the thing that has been my saving grace through this time is to get out in nature. And I make sure, by the way, that I do this. I call them field trips. I take a field trip every Sunday. I live in Northern California, I have amazing, beautiful places around me. So I will go to a place that people, by the way, come from all over the world to go to, and I'm blessed to do that. Later today, I'll be going to wine country. How wonderful is that? But I'm intentional. I just want you to hear that. I am intentional about having fun And so what that looks like for me is going to the beach, getting out in nature, going to a farmer's market, and that's been another fun thing I've done all through COVID when things were actually at least open outside is I go to farmer's markets because then I can support the farmers, I can get fresh vegetables, and I have a little fun and they're in fun places and I make a field trip out of it. So that's been one of my strategies.
I love it. I'm going to pause you there, Jill, because we're running out of time for today's show. But as you can hear, Jill has a lot of depth, a lot of skills, and we're just scratching the surface of this great resource that I know she is, and I hope you're starting to get she is too. If everybody listening in, if you could leave them with one takeaway that they wake up tomorrow remembering your voice, Jill, and going, Jill said, what's the one takeaway you want to really leave them with today?
My Jill said is that your message matters. Listen, I'm in the world of publicity, so I'm all about messaging, and I believe that every single one of you listening, your message matters. That's what I want to leave you with.
That's such a simple thing and so powerful because so many people don't feel they matter, right? It's like, it's all pointless, nothing matters, and I'm so with you. Those simple, they don't be simple, but everybody has a point of view perspective that can make a difference, and maybe it's just one person you share it with, but the ripples of that over time. I still remember getting your book off you over a decade ago in America at CEO Space, and that stuck with me. Now, you may have forgotten that today. I didn't. That's sometimes how it is, and it's not quite what your messaging is saying with your message matters, but there's definitely something there, and you never know what the ripples are, right, from when you share your message.
Well, exactly. Who you're going to touch and what you say, including your smile, including the light in your eyes, including your connection, your help. One of the things I also want to leave people with, because with my kindness community, one of the things I'm really big on is practice a conscious act of kindness every single day, and then watch your life change.
So just because I really want to use the space we've got, we are going to wrap up shortly. I know you promised them a short, focused podcast. When you say kindness, what makes something a kind act compared to a not kind act? You know what it is intuitively. Maybe you've got a clearer definition or a clearer way of explaining that.
It could be, it's a simple smile. Yeah. It's a gesture of support. Like a neighbor who's got a husband who has dementia. I go over and I give her dinner. I just leave it on her porch. There's no expectation. How can you reach out and help someone? It could be as simple as holding the door open when you go through it. For the next person, someone struggling with a bag of groceries, go grab it. What is it that you can do in your community to make a difference? For me, I teach a virtual publicity course, and one of my commitments is that every single course, there's a nonprofit who is gifted into the course, every single course. And by the way, sometimes we have to find them. They don't just come out of the woodwork, but that's my conscious act of kindness in my business. So it's in my business and in my life. And I think everybody can, do things like that.
No, I love it. And if I could, I'd get Wayne Dyer on here. I know Michael's busy. Maybe one day we'll get Michael Beckwith on. Is there anybody else you'd love to get their perspective, people you've met that you think would have an interesting perspective to share with our listeners?
I think we're all amazing human beings. But yes, there's quite a few that I love. Some are in business and some are in my wonderful spiritual world. But I love Marcy Shimoff, who wrote a great book called Happy for No Reason. I love Deborah Poneman, who is doing great work in the world about aging and about success, creating success in life. There's just so many people who are committed to doing great work out there, and I'm happy to share some of those with you.
I think you hopefully get is you've got relationships that you build up over time, right, Jill, with these people? And
yes,
that's what I love, because you're quick to act, but from a place of knowing. And I think that really comes across. You've done the work on yourself again and again, done the practice, as you said. If people want to reach out and get hold of you, what's the best way for them to connect with you? Is that on your website, on jilllublin.com?
Yes, that's perfect. jilllublin.com. Yes, perfect.
And I know you were going to find some surprises for you in the portal if you're listening, so check that out too. Jill, thank you so much for today. I know you've got to head off to your other clients and off to the beach for your field day, your field trips. It's been really a pleasure for me getting to know you a bit deeper today on today's Pause Reset. Out of everything you said, there's something about this intentionality of doing the work to raise your frequency, to raise those shifts, because it's like your duty so you can help others. Is that right?
Absolutely. That'd be a big thing. Let's do that together. What a difference. Yes.
Yeah. And I do think that if one person can do it, like that's part of what's driving me with Pause Reset. If one person can help reset themselves a bit quicker, a bit better, and help somebody else do the same, then it builds up. Now, I've always seen you as like a collaboration person. You're good at working with other people and helping elevate them, and I really want to acknowledge you for doing that. I'm smiling. I know you can't see me on audio, but I'm smiling, and one day we'll get you back in London, hopefully, and help share your message around the world a bit more. Whatever you do, make sure to check out Jill at jilllublin.com. That's Jill Lublin, Lublin.com. And with that said, it's nearly time for us to once again pause, stop, reset. And before you do, to get maximum value, make sure you head to Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're subscribed and give us 5 stars. Make a comment on what you heard from Jill. You can take action on today. And I can't wait to see you next time. And Jill, thank you so much for being a guest today.
Thank you, Simon.
Bye for now, guys. See you soon.
You've just heard a great podcast. Want to start your own? Email Jason at apodcastcompany.com.